Hello again, I am Blunty, and this is the end cap for my full-on review series for the Olympus Pen EP5, the new premium top end of Olympus's Micro Four Thirds pen camera range. And today I'll be showing you what happened when I went out and gave it a shootout up against its predecessor, the EP3. If this is the first of this particular review series you're watching, please note that the EP5 I was using for these reviews was a pre-production camera and was running pre-release firmware, so things may mature and get tweaked by the time you can actually buy one. Well, let's start by bouncing across the physical differences real quick. They're about the same size and weight and feel very similar in hand. The new control layout of the EP5 is significantly better, however. It's more ergonomic, faster to use, and more intuitive. It's nothing major, it's just a bunch of nice little refinements in control location and flexibility, but it all adds up to something quite noticeable once you're actually shooting with it. Power on time is actually quite close, but the EP5 is ready to shoot noticeably faster, though that's not to say the EP3 was ever slow to begin with. Focus is a bit faster too. It's hard to demonstrate here on the desk, but I've been shooting with my trusty EP3 very regularly for about 16 months, so I'm very familiar with its performance. And the EP5 felt faster with focus, and in every other aspect actually. Now, as with all my camera shootouts, I do my best to make sure the playground is as fair as possible. I was shooting here with a matched pair of lenses, two brand new Sigma 30mm f2.8 DN art lenses, and naturally I made each shot with the same mode selection, same color profile, same ISO settings, same aperture settings, and on and on and on. The only thing I couldn't do was use the RAW files, as because the EP5 wasn't even announced when I was testing, and that it was a pre-production unit, of course my editing software had no support for its RAW files, so everything I'm showing you here are the straight out of camera JPEGs. And I can tell you right now from my experience with the OMD EM5, which has the same sensor and same image processor as the EP5, there is a lot more dynamic range in those RAW files than there are in the EP3 RAW files. But that difference does not come across as starkly in the JPEGs I'm able to show you. You can also see a difference in scale with the 100% crops I show you. This is simply down to the EP5 being a higher resolution sensor, 16 megapixels versus the EP3's 12. Aside from that, in many cases, as you're seeing, it's actually a fairly close call. The main differences, aside from the jump in detail the EP5 pulls in, mainly thanks to its higher resolution sensor, are the dynamic range, which would be more evident in the RAW files as I've said, but can still be seen in the out-of-camera JPEGs. The EP5 holds onto detail in the highlights much better, more consistently, and the roll-off is much smoother too. The same is true on the shadows. The EP5 reaches just a bit further in and holds onto the details more reliably there too. Some of the other advantages of the EP5 are just as subtle, but are still quite desirable. The significantly better stabilization, for example, will let you get sharper results, especially when hand-holding at lower shutter speeds to create some subject motion blur and things like flowing water here, but simultaneously avoiding introducing blur from handshake and the like. So how about ISO performance? Well, it's a reasonably tight match for most of the lows, as you'd expect really, but by the time you hit ISO 2500, the EP3 starts to grain up and chromatic noise becomes increasingly aggressive. From there on up, it's just no contest. The EP3 falls apart quickly and the EP5 holds things together significantly better, and even goes into ISO ranges the EP3 isn't even capable of doing. So it's a clear win for the 5 on this one. Moving over to video, and the tale told is similar. The EP5 isn't a giant leap forward on first impression, but in any corner you peer into, it's at least a step or two forward. The tonal transitions are a bit gentler, detail is certainly crisper, motion is a bit smoother, the EP5's screen is easy to see and use thanks to its own higher resolution and new tilting ability, which makes shooting with video much easier in its own right and can't be underestimated. The files from the EP5 are also more pleasant to work with, being a true 1080 30p feed as opposed to the EP3, which actually buries a 1080 60i video feed into a 30p wrapper, which can cause interlacing issues in post-production if not carefully handled and transcoded properly. But with the EP5, it's an easier workflow all the way through, less fiddling, more reliable and fewer risks of artifacts. And again, that amazing newly refined 5-axis stabilization system makes a massive difference. It's truly in a whole new league when compared to the old school system in the EP3, and this is why I rarely shoot with my EP3 in the field, and usually have it locked onto a tripod when shooting with it at my desk. It just gets all kind of difficult when on the move. But the EP5, no worries. This is one feature, this is one thrust forward that makes a truly significant difference in how flexible and reliable a tool it can be. The focus system is the other big jump that makes the 5 more useful than the 3. Not only is focus faster in general, but there's been a huge refinement to the continuous autofocus and object tracking autofocus systems. And nothing says it clearer than this footage. Again, this is why I never really used these features on my EP3, but with the 5, I could and would use them, and know I could count on them not spazzing out on me. To be honest, the object tracking is not as good as some other brands currently do. It can occasionally get confused and jump about a bit, but it will hold on to a face quite consistently, and that's the most useful use case for this feature anyway. So, the whole story reads like this. On first blush, it may not look like a big upgrade when you're looking at them side by side like this, but it's all the little things that add up to a much happier shooting experience, and even more reliable results, more power, more flexibility. Everything about the results, the shooting experience and general usability itself is a little bit better. And a couple of things like the stabilization, the broader ISO range, faster maximum shutter speed and so on are all significantly better. Seems to me upgraders have some thinking to do. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope these review videos have been useful or at least informative. I am Blunty, and I'll catch you next time.